What is good, gamers? It's me, one of your two hosts, this Game Death of Color Expo 2024, the Purple Sharpie. And I'm back with yet another game developer interview. I'm here today with the creative director from Venba Games, Abhi. How are you doing today, Abhi?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for asking. But hey, don't talk about me. Let's talk about your project, your team's latest critically acclaimed, internationally renowned game, Venba. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, Venba is a narrative cooking game where you play as a Indian immigrant mother who moves to Canada in the late 1980s. And the game is about restoring lost recipes while discovering this family story about love, loss, and more.
While I take time to recover from that amazing synopsis, why don't we go ahead and give our viewers a sneak peek of that trailer?
கர்மா நம்ம சென்னை சிட்டி அது கடையாளம் தான் எங்க பட்டி தொட்டி இழுக்குது பாருடி செல்ல குட்டி சென்னை சிட்டி அத டக்கல் பட்டி தொட்டி கலக்குது செல்ல குட்டி நம்ம சென்னை சிட்டி அப்பா ஓகேல
Abhi, you've done multiple interviews on this game, and I didn't want to repeat any of the questions. So most of this interview is actually going to be focused on the development cycle of your game. All right. Yeah. I want to actually start with the team of Venba. I understand that there are less than 10 people on that team. Can you tell us a little bit more about it?
Venba really started as a part-time thing. And in the beginning, it was just me and my friend Sam, who's the artist on the game. For the longest time, we were just working on the game ourselves. And then slowly, as the game grew in popularity and we were able to secure some funding, we expanded the team to add mostly contractors who would come in and work at for a few hours a week and stuff like that. But we were able to get a music composer, a sound designer, and all of these things. But still the team size is pretty small. I would say the core team probably around 3 to 6 people.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I have to ask, obviously you all started in about 2020. I believe the development cycle lasted about 3 years or so. That's an impressive stunt for a very, very small sub-10 indie team. Talk to us about that experience and what it was like.
Venba is actually a pretty short game. You can beat it in 2 hours or so. So the whole thing taking 3 years was mostly because we were hoping to work on the game full time. But even though we started the idea in 2020, it's not until like late 2021 that we were able to actually start production because it took us that long to secure funding for it. And even after that, I was still working part-time at my day job, and then I would do this at night and to keep funding the company. It's not until 2022 that I was able to quit my job. But so it was that process that kind of elongated it. But it was still really motivating because we got to see people's reactions to our trailers and our social media posts, and that kept us going. But I think if you were able to work on it full time, maybe we would have been able to get it out in 2 years or so. Yeah.
What was the funding process for this game like? You've already talked about obviously not being able to work on it full time. I imagine that monetary requirements were a part of that. A lot of indie devs previously have spoken to me about how difficult it is to find publishers or crowdfund the money through Kickstarters and such. How did Venba actually get funded, and how did you manage to basically make it monetarily worth for the remainder of your team?
So it's a really funny story. I think I was very much an outsider to this industry in 2020. I worked at a mobile game company that was very much outside what we would think about as the hardcore video game audience. But so as a result, I didn't have many contacts in the industry with publishers or things like that. My process was just hoping that, if we make a game that's interesting and unique enough, publishers might find it interesting and unique also, and then they might fund it. And at that time, we were asking for very little money. But what was throughout 2020, I was pitching Venba to maybe 30, 40 different publishers, and pretty much all of them said no in various different ways. I don't blame them for it. Like I think I understand because Venba was so different. There wasn't a game that we could point to and be like, oh, that game did well, so this game will also do well. So I understand they're risk averse to it. But at the end of 2020, Wholesome Games, they reached out to us and they said, hey, do you want to show the trailer for Venba in our upcoming direct? And at that point, we didn't have a game at all. Like we had zero gameplay. But like Sam, the artist, and I, we sat down for 2 weeks and we basically faked a trailer for what we thought the game would be like. And we submitted it, and it kind of went like a little bit mini viral in Twitter, and like we made a bunch of like end of the year lists, like games to look forward to. No, the timing was really great. And I went to vacation, Christmas break, and then I came back, and there were emails from not just publishers who had previously rejected us, but who are interested in learning more now, but also platforms like Microsoft and Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo. And the thing is, the reason why you want a publisher is that they can go get these deals from platforms for you. But because now platforms are interested in talking to us directly, we were able to get that funding from them, like through Game Pass, for example, and Sony had their own indie fund. And all of these things made it so that we were profitable even before we launched Venba. So it was a quick shift for us, but it took us a while. And for me, I think what that's taught me is that in 2020, I went through that period of publisher rejections, thinking that maybe a game like Venba does not have market appeal or things like that, because you kind of think it's the publisher's job to figure that out, right? But I think it's more. So I thought like publishers are like very creative people who can like see the project for what it is, but
not at all.
I think they can be. I think a lot of them can be, but I think most of them, you can look at them more like VCs, like venture capitalists. And so when they look at a product or like a game, they think about what's a game that's similar to this and has that done well. So in my head, like if I had pitched like a South Asian Hades, that would have probably flown over a bit better, because Venba is like a narrative cooking game. Like they didn't realize that there was market appeal for it. And when the trailer went viral and like people were so excited, like that kind of, we were able to prove out that there is a market appeal for it, right? So for indies, I would say, who are struggling to get funding, don't take publisher feedback too personally. You might know something that they don't. Yeah.
Very, very important words of wisdom there. And thank you so much for sharing that very personal project story with us, because there are a lot of, I'm sure, indie teams watching right now that are going through the exact same struggle. Yeah. I'm very, very happy once again for you and the entirety of VSI Games for obviously having a very successful launch. You all got a multitude of awards, not just at like a singular event, but several different events. And it's ultimately changed the way that narrative games as a whole are received, especially narrative games coming from an international location or with a story around a POC person. How does that make you feel? And secondarily, I do want to ask the question of, do you feel as though this is enough towards pushing not just indie games, but specifically people of color stories to the forefront inside of gaming?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So I think my head, when I started with Venba, kind of selfishly, it was about telling this very specific story. And I wanted to say it, right? And my goals around was like committing to the authenticity of telling that story. Because I genuinely believe that the more authentic the story is, the better it will reach the player that's playing it. And I think it'll reach regardless of the demographic, right? And I think what I would, if Venba's success means anything, I think what I would like to tell other game developers who come from any marginalized background is to like not compromise on the story they're saying, not water it down. Don't make concessions to make it accessible, or like Venba is very aggressive about it's the way it shows its culture. Like it doesn't try to tutorialize it. It doesn't try to explain a lot of things. It just presents it like it is. And what I found is like time and time again, people really respond to that. I've said this in a couple other interviews, but like my favorite filmmaker, one of my favorite filmmakers, Vetrimaran, he says, the more local you are, the more international you become. And I think Venba working, like it's such a specific and personal story. And a lot of people who play it, they're surprised that it affected them. They're like, oh, I'm not from this background, or I don't have this, lived experience, but I'm surprised it affected. But like, why should you be surprised? Like I watch media all the time that's about all these kind of different characters that I don't necessarily relate to, but it still affects me, right?
Very true.
And I think one good example of that is like in Japan, Venba, for even though we have not localized in Japanese, just because we haven't localized in any language except English because we ran out of budget, really. But it's doing really well, and not players are really like pointing to their screen like with Google Lens and translating every dialogue so they can play the game, and they're going out and buying ingredients so they can cook along. So to me, this is a great like thing that came full circle, because when I was younger, I would often watch anime and subbed anime or dubbed anime or like anime that doesn't have translations on, but suddenly I would care about something very specific, right? So to me, this is the same thing. So often when I talk to game developers from India, they would say like, I'm surprised you just named your characters, Venba, like all these very authentic names, or like show these authentic things. We thought like for a game to do well in the West, it would have to be westernized, and like and I always say there's already people that exist to make Western games, right? But only we can make the games that we want to make, so we should just stick to that. That's, and I hope that like the success of Venba, if anything we can take away from that, I think we should take away that like these stories do have a space and they are commercially viable. Yeah.
Avi, you're honestly making me tear up here. It's so fantastic to be able to speak. This is why I love talking to indie devs, is because authentically, you all are the people on gaming's front line. I've always said that AAA can make very good, very polished games, but I think indie is where you get great games. And I think Venba is truly a case study in that. And just speaking with you for this brief amount of time has really shown it. Avi, I want to thank you again for taking time today to do this interview.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I think a place like, Game Devs of Color Expo, something that's so focused and you guys are bringing so much energy to something like this, I think is a really special thing. And I know there are so many developers who are grateful that something like this exists. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you again. Everybody, that's going to do it for this episode and this interview and this opportunity to showcase Venba and V-Size Games project here at Game Devs of Color Expo 2024. If you were touched the same way I was by Avi's amazing words and output and input here on the game industry, I highly recommend going over right now to venbagames.com and grabbing Venba on Steam. I highly recommend it. Super, super, super excited to play through. And truthfully, if your playthrough is anything like my playthrough, it's going to change you for the better. That's going to do it for this developer interview, but we have even more of Game Devs of Color Expo 2024 coming right up.